Andy, as I realize we're in the video mode, I have to actually take care and actually make sure my hair isn't sticking all up or that I'm not wearing the same shirt over and over. I enjoy these video podcasts, but it does take a little extra work. I don't know.
Dave, America deserves to see you in your well coiffed hair. So, I mean, you're doing a good job on the shirts. I mean,
Did
you've
you
only
say
got so much.
well coiffed? I mean, that's okay.
I'm being generous. I mean, you've got some hair still there, but I mean, you do what you do. We're going to the same shirts on from time to time. Although today I'm in one of my favorite old Lions shirts here. This is my Motor City Lions, shirt, one of my older ones. But we're going to wear the same shirts. I think that's just going to happen.
Yeah, it is going to happen, and I do have some of my go-to shirts. I enjoy this, I enjoy those comfort shirts. It's enjoyable at times. It just so happens I may wear them once a week, and I
Mm.
have to be okay with that.
No one's judging you. Everybody's judging.
All right, Andy, with that, let's get into the week here. Got a lot on the docket today. We'll do our sports check-in, do a little news events. I got some fun things there, and then a little pop culture check-in at the end here. So let's jump into it. Andy, sports check-in, hit me. Detroit pulled it out at the end here. How you feeling?
They just wanted to give America a little bit of excitement. Tony Romo calling the game. They wanted to make it exciting. Something to talk about. It was, it was closer than it should have been. I mean, you go for it on fourth down. How many times in a game, but we love it. America loves it, right? Dan Campbell's got probably the biggest set of onions in the NFL right now. I'll be honest. There was a moment there as the Lions were wrapping up the game, and they went for what was probably an achievable field goal attempt to win the game, and they decided to go for it on fourth down to just be able to hold the ball until the very end. And I was stressing highly, to be honest with you. I was ready to throw my phone at my TV, but they made it. Great pass to our young rookie tight end, and the Lions did a great job and pulled it out, and are presently 7-2. And Dave, not everybody's a Lions fan. So they might not realize this, but though one can argue if the Lions are the best team in the NFC. I would argue they're a top four team in the NFC, but by virtue of their schedule, they have the easiest path to the number one seed in the NFC, which is a very interesting, situation for the whole NFC and certainly for the Detroit Lions to be the number one seed is potentially, pretty crazy. Again, not saying they're the best team, they might be, but definitely the easiest path. So it was a very exciting weekend in Lions football. And I hope that those listening are coming around and getting on the bandwagon. There is room. But Dave, I mean, in addition to that, I mean, some wild football all around,
All around.
including the Denver Broncos pulling magic out of Sean Payton's bottom and beating the Bills. I don't know what's happening in Denver, but they're turning it on, becoming a legitimate football team out there. And I'm kind of excited about it.
Well, when you change, look, I know he got ridiculed early, and when they lost 70-21 or whatever, ever since then they've been playing good football. Look, it takes a little while. When you have a dysfunctional culture in any organization, you're not going to just step in and overnight change that. I mean, Sean Payton is a well-regarded and highly skilled coach. He's done wonders as Super Bowl champion. But you have to look at it and you have to come away a little bit impressed. I do want to go back to the Lions just for a brief minute and just, can we remark how, one, you mentioned about the home field advantage. That's important because Detroit may only play one additional outdoor game the rest of this year, and they're an indoor team. I mean, that they're designed that way. That helps everybody on Detroit. And let's remark just for a minute about Jared Goff. Here's the number one draft pick.
Yep.
He was widely ridiculed while he was in LA as if Sean McVay had to hold his hand to make sure he was even not making mistakes. And like yesterday or on Sunday, he just he had everything he wanted. And I think it just goes to show you, when you are so quick to judge these quarterbacks as busts, maybe it's not the quarterback always, and maybe it's the culture they come into that is like, Mac Jones is getting widely ridiculed now because he's an awful quarterback, and I'm here for it, because anytime New England can stink, I'm all here for it. But you look at like Bryce Young in Charlotte is getting ridiculed now. But then you look at CJ Stroud and everyone's going how great and wonderful he is. Look, I think the margin of talent is very thin. It's what you surround these individuals with that are going to make or break them. And Jared Goff's an example. And look, in very rare instances, do you have trades work out for both teams? But Matt Stafford going to LA to win a Super Bowl, that was what they needed.
Yeah.
And maybe what Detroit needed was Jared Goff coming and turning into a top 10 quarterback. I mean, it's on the table. So
Yeah, no, he's playing the best football he's ever played. He's got the weapons around him and a great offensive coordinator to help guide him. And it really is fun to watch the Lions play. I mean, a 41-38 shootout, while stressful for fans, is a fun game to watch. And the Chargers offense, and by the way, Chargers, I can't stop calling you San Diego. Just move back. But the Chargers offense was great, killing me because the Lions could not stop them. But it was a fun game to watch. It was a good match. And yeah, Jared Goff's playing great football, and he's got amazing players around him. Amon-Ra St. Brown is amazing. That dynamic deal in the backfield right now. I mean, Gibbs and Monty together. I don't know how the team stops it. If you focus on the run, they get killed with great receivers. I mean, Amon-Ra St. Brown and Sam Laporta alone are deadly weapons. We're going to get some more talent back on the field. J-Mo's starting to play well. It's exciting. It's a fun time to be a Lions fan. And again, America, the Lions welcome you. The Lions welcome you.
There you go. On the flip side of that, Andy, I had an up and down weekend. The Cowboys did what they were supposed to do. It is, look, I know Tommy DeVito is a quarterback in with the New York Giants. But let's just be realistic. I mean, he's not much of a quarterback. He won't be around much longer, I would imagine. But anytime we can beat your rival, if you want to call somebody you've beaten, pounded over the last decade, a rival anymore. Anytime you can beat a rival 89-17 in the course of a season, that's a pretty good season for me, and I'll take it for sure. The Cowboys did what they were supposed to do. On the other hand, Penn State did what they also supposed to do. The only good thing that came out of that game is Penn State ultimately decided to fire their offensive coordinator, who's been atrocious. These guys come in and they're like, oh, he's going to revolutionize the offense and do all this stuff, and wind up it's just the same old stuff. And I thought I had hopes that they might try to pull out some additional looks and strings and stuff, and they did the same thing over and over. And I think finally that was enough, and they fired him. And look, Penn State's going to be 10-2, go to a New Year's Six bowl, maybe 11-2, 10-3. Look, by a lot of margins, that's a good, successful program, and I'll take it. But you just, in the big games, you just have to do a little bit better. But interesting side note on that, we've talked about the Jim Harbaugh cheating scandal. And right before the game, it was announced that Jim Harbaugh would be suspended, or actually it was announced Friday that he'd be suspended and wouldn't be allowed to be on the sidelines. He could coach during the weeks, but can't be on the sidelines. And then his appeal was denied on Saturday morning. So they had an assistant coach be the head coach for the week. Andy, the story gets crazier and crazier. It seems like. I mean, what do you think about the Jim Harbaugh activity?
I mean, the investigation is the investigation. I assume that'll be correct in the way it comes out. I think suspending a coach just from games is kind of weak, right?
Yeah,
right. Because if you're there coaching them every day and before the game and through, like really, are you really killing a team? Like, I don't know if Jim Harbaugh calls the plays. I'm guessing he doesn't, right? So
no,
I don't know if you're really killing the team. I think that's showing, hey, Jim Harbaugh's not on the sideline. We took action. It's kind of weak, but for Jim Harbaugh and his massive ego, that's infuriating, right? So this is interesting to see it play out. There's been talk of Harbaugh trying to go back to the NFL just to get away from the ghosts that are building up in Michigan. And they're talking about him going to Chicago Bears, where he played ball for a while, right? It's where he made his mark. And I would personally hate that, because I think he's actually a pretty good coach. So I really don't want him in the NFC North. But don't cheat in pro sports or college sports or in general. I mean, just like play by the rules. We talked about this before, so it's good they did something, but they didn't really do much.
Yeah, it's kind of I relate it to, look, everyone comes out and goes, there's levels of cheating that's always occurring. You're always doing this. You're always doing that. Like, yeah, there's levels of that for sure. And there is scouting, but there's also rules around that. And look, if you're doing what they've alleged to have done, that is against the rules. That's blatantly against the rules, and they should be fairly punished for that. And I'm sure we'll see where that goes. I just love the talk though. Oh, Michigan's going to leave the Big Ten, and we're going to do this, we're going to do that, and I just like, okay, let's see it all play out first, and let's settle down here, Michigan. You've had 3 good years in the last 20 years, and you're not all of a sudden. It's like the whole Notre Dame rhetoric. I keep hearing about the glory days of Notre Dame, and like let's be relevant for a little while before you can start pushing the things around. So all right, Andy, let's wrap up with the sports talk for this time. You got a transition for us, Andy?
Oh, transition, you say?
All right, we're
cracking the code on our technical issues here, and I think we'll continue to work on our sound effects. I've got an array of them here, and I'm looking forward to familiarizing myself with them all so I can play them as you start talking nonsense, and I can start putting things in. So I'll do my best to sound engineer. I'm glad we were able to take this step.
Oh, very good. Very good. All right, Andy, we'll transition to a little bit of the news of the day, top of mind topic here. I found it interesting. We've been talking a lot about politics. We talked a little bit about Republican stuff last week. Andy, I saw a very interesting article. I saw 2 interesting articles. One, it had been long speculated and long alluded to, but Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson had been approached by both political parties about an interest in running. Now, he keeps denying it, says he wants to be a dad and father first, but I don't see that this is a far off dream anymore. I think in the next 10 years or so, we may see The Rock throw his ring into politics. So it'd be interesting to see that.
Yeah.
So that was one note. And then the second note is, as we were talking about third parties, I love seeing how all of a sudden now, as the momentum starts coming up with third parties, you talk about Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson and all that other stuff. All of a sudden now the political elite start coming in and saying how dangerous third parties are going to be.
Yeah.
And how this is the worst time. This is not the time in history to go with a third party, because this is the critical election of our generation, Andy.
Right.
If we mess this up, we mess up everything. So if we vote for a third party, take away votes from Biden or take away votes for Trump or whoever the GOP candidate is, we are single-handedly going to ruin this country, Andy. What do you think?
I think, Dave, I mean, you're absolutely right. It's a song that gets rolled out really every 2 years, but especially in presidential election years, that this is the most important election of our lifetimes, right? And every single time. And it's a fear-mongering technique. It's a good storyline for the media, right? That this election is so vital because it gets people locked in and excited and watching. So it's good for the media, but it's certainly good for political parties. And I mean, it's bullshit, right? I mean, every single election can't be the most important election of our lifetimes, right? It just doesn't work, right? So it's a fear tactic that's used, and you're absolutely right. I mean, one, just going back to The Rock, I think at some point, we'll have The Rock and Taylor Swift just crowned king and queen of the country, and everybody else be content with that, I think. But besides that, I think you're right on. I mean, I think there's genuine concern from both parties, right? Maybe not from both parties, but especially from the Democrats and Donald Trump, of potential third parties. There's some good articles here. I mean, one, you've got Joe Manchin now, sort of a centrist-ish senator from West Virginia, not running for re-election. He's been flirting around with pursuing the no labels nomination, which wants to be on the ballot in all 50 states and has some bipartisan support from sort of, I don't want to use the term moderate. I don't think that's fair. I'd say traditional party guys from both sides, red and blue. You've got Cornel West, who we talked about before, who was running as a Green Party candidate, is now going to continue his candidacy independently. So he's going to pursue being on the ballot. You've got Jill Stein, who I think Democrats are exhausted with, pursuing the Green Party nomination again. And some argue that she cost Democrats the election before. And then we've talked about RFK Jr. before, and a good article in The Hill, saying that, hey, the DC establishment's genuinely concerned because his numbers at this point are on par with Ross Perot's, which it could be. A lot of people think Ross Perot cost George Bush the first the election of Bill Clinton, right? So this is a big threat to the Trump-Biden matchup and the most important election of our lifetimes. It could be very chaotic, and the stress being seen on both political parties. I love it, Dave. I think it's great. I think it's awesome, and we're going to hear more and more of this. Don't be a spoiler. Don't do it. And it's an example of the brokenness of our two-party system and the way that we trying to get captured in this binary A/B choice, which isn't good for America. It's not good for America. So I'll stop there before I go on a long soapbox conversation.
Yeah, I just think the fear mongering aspect of it just gets tired. I mean, it gets old after a while. And look, I mean, if you want to blame Ross Perot for why George H.W. Bush didn't get elected in 1992, if you want to blame Jill Stein for why Hillary Clinton didn't win in 2016, maybe you should do a little bit better on that front, as opposed to blaming the third party candidate. Maybe you should have realized that it was the economy in 92, and that maybe Hillary should have not taken those states for granted and actually have campaigned in those states. And so there's a lot of very simple reasons to go after a lot of those things, but I do feel like that continues to be a challenge on those fronts. But it was like the playbook came out. It was like, here it is, right on CNN. Third parties are bad, and we just can't have it. Oh, who wrote that article? Oh, Senator Clyburn. Oh, I understand. Yeah, I get it. Okay, it makes a lot of sense now. And telling me about all that political experience, why third parties are bad. So find that very ironic, and we'll just kind of go from there, Andy. So with that in mind, anything else on top of mind for you, Andy?
I'll just close it out with one more thought on politics. There's a few maxims I like to go back to every now and again, and this is one that during every political season, but especially in election time, is good to go back to. And this is said by Catherine Mangue Ward, who's the editor-in-chief at Reason Magazine, in August of 2022. So it was last year, and the maxim: all politicians will disappoint you and are garbage in the end. And I think that's good to remember, because that's pretty much what it is, right? Whatever hopes and aspirations people cast on given politician, be it Biden or Trump or RFK Jr. or whoever their savior of the day is, like they're not who you think they are. They're not going to live up to those expectations. And I'm not even criticizing the individuals, right? They're not going to live up to the expectations people put on them. They're just average people. They're just Americans that happen to be in that role. They're not remarkable, and you're going to be disappointed. And a lot of them, in fact, are garbage, and they're going to act like garbage, and that's going to be revealed at some point. So good maximum to keep in mind. Thank you for that, Catherine Mangue Ward. Just again, all politicians will disappoint you and are garbage in the end. So just keep that in the back of your mind as the election season continues.
Yeah, and as you hear stories about how the new House Speaker is in trouble already with the people on his own party, look, we're not even 2 weeks into his speakership, and they're already talking about how do we get rid of this guy. Look, you reap what you sow here in the world of politics, and these groups are going to get that. I do find it very very amusing, but that's a good quote to live off of. So all right, Andy, so let's wrap up the topic on the politics. Anything else you've got on the top of your mind, Andy?
Dave, I'm hitting the button.
Okay, we're transitioning here. Andy, last week I mentioned I was back for Loki.
Yes.
I had said earlier in our podcasting at the onset here that I was out on the MCU and such, and I was taking a break. I did take a break until somebody said, hey, you really should go back and check in on this. So I went back to Loki. It's only 6 episodes, which was good, but it got progressively better and better as it went along. And I think the ending was really a great ending there. What I really enjoyed about it the most is that look, I didn't need to like I didn't have to worry about who the next special guest was going to be. Is Thor going to show up, or is Nick Fury going to show in there? Look, it was just a show about Loki and
Yeah.
about what he was doing, and it had a great, interaction with the threat in there, the big bad, I guess, Kang. But I didn't need to know, I didn't need to go watch Quantum Mania, even though I did and it was awful.
Yeah.
I didn't need to watch Multiverse of Madness, even though I did and it was awful. But I was back in on Loki. Now, with that said, I'm not going to go watch the Marvels. It had a very bad opening weekend. It
Apparently
relatively
nobody went to see it. Apparently
Yeah,
nobody
nobody went to see it. And again, that's not a I think what I want to say on all of this is like everyone's worried about, this or that. I think, look, if you make a bad product, eventually people catch on and they're like, hey, you know what? I don't want to spend all that money on really bad CGI or a storyline that doesn't work. Look, they put up with it. And look, Thor, The Dark World was an awful movie, but people put up with it because they wanted to see the end credits and they knew where it was somewhat going. But I will tell you, in some of these other movies were not great either. And over time, if you keep putting out not great movies, you can't expect to have an end game type of or an Infinity War type of movie that's going to save you. And same thing that goes on with Star Wars. You just can't put out content and expect people are going to love it, especially in today's fandom worlds.
Yeah.
Where they know every little detail about every little issue or page that was written. You have to put out some good product. I think, and that's what I appreciate about Loki. It was a good product. There was a good writing. It was good direction. It was good, interaction with the main players. But I don't really have an interest to see Marvels, and it's nothing against boy versus girl or anything like that, or outer space versus on Earth. It just means, look, I'm not interested in that comic storyline. I've
Yeah.
never been interested in it. I don't need to go spend my money on it. So that's where I'm at.
Dave, I'm glad to hear it. I mean, it was, you sound a little bit like you're in a tough relationship and you broke up for a couple of weeks, back, you're not happy with it, but you're dabbling with it in hopes that it could get better. I wish you luck in this journey, but I'm glad you enjoyed Loki. I did hear good things about it. And, the Marvels is bombing. There's a time when a Marvel movie is coming out where, I would be up getting tickets for our family, first thing in the morning, and we'd be there opening night, wherever closest we could get to it. That's a few years gone, and I don't see that coming back. But I'll tell you, I am excited about James Gunn and his work with the DC universe, and he's building something there that I think is going to be exciting. He's a fun guy. His shows, Peacemaker was a lot of fun on Max. For those that saw that, his Guardians movies were great. I think he could do some really fun stuff. And the DC universe is just harder because the characters aren't as good at the end of the day, right? I mean, they're a little sillier, harder to make good movies with him. I think he'll be fun to watch. So, Marvel had a great run, and it could come back. They could do some interesting things with the X-Men, or there are different ways they might go. But I think there's some hope there for superhero nerds like I am, and maybe James Gunn will do something really great with the DC universe for a little while, because the last run for DC was pretty awful, and so hopefully they can pick it up. But it's fun to see. It's fun to be entertained, and that's superheroes are one way to go. But Dave, an epically short breakup on your part.
Yeah, it was. And look, I'm all for big budget action movies and stuff, but you can't be like big budget and then expect to be like this high end quality. Like, find your zone and make a good movie. And look, Marvel for a long time had the right recipe, and then I think they tried to go too far. They tried to shortchange a couple things. Everything had to be big explosions and like, just make a good movie. How about just make a good movie? Like the Flash movie. I watched it on Max a couple weeks back, and it was everything as bad as everyone thought it was going to be. But mildly, I was like, oh, that's I kind of had a good time with some of that. It was
you were entertained, right?
I was entertained, and you know why? Because I didn't spend $70 going to the movie theater. I had it at home, and that was fine with me. Let's just put these things in the right perspective and be where we're at. But anyways, I wanted to close that loop on the on me being back. I'm partially back. We'll see where they goes. I'm probably not going to watch this show Echo, because again, I have no interest in the storyline. I have no interest in knowing any more about that character. And for people who do, great. There you have that platform for it. but I'll focus on, if I want to see some of that other type of drama, I'll go to my WWE fix and hit
There
a
you go.
little, see a little of what John Cena might be doing there, or the American Nightmare might be doing. So on that, Andy, as we start wrapping up some of this episode here for this first of our week here, anything else you got you're thinking through?
Well, one, I like the way you brought things back and you started with The Rock and you brought it back to WWE. So nice.
I'll try.
There. Yeah, well done. Well played. Good job closing the show out properly. But I think, I'll say one thing, David, I was working out yesterday, and as I was wrapping up, I U2 came on. I really liked their song Atomic City, right? It's on my current workout playlist, and it's a fun song. And so I was enjoying that. And then I was wrapping up, and so I was like, hey, let me just put a little bit more U2. And I went to How to Dismantle Atomic Bombs. I think it's a great album. And Love and Peace came on, right? And I love that song, many levels. I love that song. And I was listening to it, it really just sort of hit me, in relation to the geopolitical events we've just been discussing here with Israel and Gaza and sort of the protests here in the U.S. and just the intensity of I use the term violence, not only for the actual physical violence, but the hostility between people. And that's a great song. And if you go back and listen to it, it's almost 20 years old. It came out in 2004. And it just really sort of talks about, to me, that conflict in particular. And it's U2's lyrics are great, the music is great. That album is really fun, and a good listen, as all U2 albums are. But I'd say, given the current political events, it's a good song to go back and check out. I threw it up on Threads and my Instagram stories because it really just resonated when I heard it. I was like, man, this really is timely. Classic song, and I can't believe it's almost 20 years old. But more importantly, the lyrics of that song and just the call to love and peace and an end to violence. That's just where we have to eventually get to. And I don't know if humanity ever will, but great lyrics, and it really resonated with me as I was listening to it yesterday. So there's my U2 acknowledgement for the day.
Yeah, as Andy goes back to the 1960s and the flower power movement of love and peace and all this other stuff.
2004.
So, Andy, I don't disagree. I do think, obviously people are going to roll their eyes about how Bono can't be, the spokesperson for world peace and all this stuff. Well, he's just an artist, just make music. Again, I think that's partially what's wrong with some of our society at times is when you have individuals, he's like, look at all the work that he has done on so many fronts on the global stage, and obviously it's ripe for criticism from those who are sitting behind in their basement or on their keyboard, the keyboard warriors and such. But I don't disagree with the sentiment, Andy, and I do think it is a valuable life lesson, especially as we get into this holiday season, Andy. With Thanksgiving and the respective holidays coming up. So, Andy, that'll wrap things up for this week. I am going to set you up though, in the next couple episodes, Andy, we are going to have to get into some sort of our Thanksgiving, we're going to have to do a Thanksgiving draft, I think. I think we're going to have to come up with some sort of, shtick or gimmick or something where we pick out our top 5 things. We'll go through the orders of a dinner. I do this a little bit on one of my other podcasts or whatever, on Nerd Out. But on this, Andy, I want to make it a true draft. Like, if you pick something, I can't pick it. So so we're gonna have to go with a little something there, and we'll have a little fun with that, and then we'll talk a little bit about holiday movies. I want to get into that and shows and your top 5s here, but we won't do that until after Thanksgiving, Andy. We have to be true to our Thanksgiving principles and all that. So
I look forward to your challenge, Dave. I'm ready to embrace it.
All right, good. And setting up our listeners for what's to come here. So, Andy, with all that, I will see you next time.